2 people have died. Let's look at the Daily Mirror. Russian bombs hit Poland. NATO to hold crisis talks as Putin's stray missiles kills 2 in village. The Guardian. Russia's barrage strike Ukraine amid claims missiles hit Poland. Now, there's another story that I want to talk about here. On the Guardian's front page, there's a picture of a 2-year-old Awuah Ishak who died 2 days after his second birthday from prolonged exposure to mold in his family's flat in Manchester. The coroner called it a defining moment for the UK's housing sector. Now, this story really touched me. I beg your pardon if you hear a bit of me snorting. This is just I've still got the cold lingering, right? But I'm okay. This story, where it's this story that the Guardian have put on their front page, is alarming. The 2-year-old boy died after being exposed to a prolonged mold in his family's home. Now, a lot of people within our community have these issues. They have this issue, and for some reason, do not complain about mold in their house. You have a house, you have a leak, or there's damp condensation, you get mold. Do not take this lightly. Unfortunately, the young boy has passed away. And I know a lot of people that, as soon as you enter the house, you can smell the damp. And when you can smell damp, rest assured, it will be moldy. So don't take this lightly at all. If you happen to have mold in your house, contact the local authority, contact your council. If you have a council flat, if you're renting, contact your landlord or your agent. If you've bought your house, you have a mortgage, then you need to take the necessary steps to be able to deal with the mold. Sometimes just having the treatment could do the job. Sometimes too is just poor ventilation, condensation, and maybe you need a heater. If it's the bathroom, you need a heater in the bathroom, so on and so forth. Do not sit idle because it could be detrimental to you or your loved one's life. So it's very, very important for people to take note. The Daily Express. Tragic death of boy from mold shames Britain. And again, the Daily Express leads with that story. It's very common. Mold is really, really common. Okay? It is very, very common. Because, right up until this year's summer, where Britain was known as a cold country. So what people tend to do is when we're having a shower, you close the windows and everything, right? And if the room is poorly ventilated, then that will happen. Or if there's a leak, that could happen as well. Let's look at the Financial Times. Financial Times reports on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's remarks at the G20 summit in Bali, where he told other world leaders that the top executives should embrace pay resistance and look after all their workers. As the global population grows and welcomes the 8th billionth baby, the paper also pictures baby Damien, who was chosen to represent the Dominican Republic's contribution towards worldwide milestone. Wow, 8 billion of people on the earth, planet Earth. The Daily Mail. Let's look at the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail reports on calls by a watchdog to include critical race theory in more university courses, spanning from maths to classics. Universities are being told to decolonize courses, says the paper. Wow. If you look at the Sun has a picture of Ronaldo and his family. I keep our baby Angel's ashes. I talk to him all the time. And this is off the back of the interview he did with, excuse me, Piers Morgan, which, hasn't gone down well with a lot of people. But no matter what you say, and I mean, let me have my little 2 seconds on the issue with Ronaldo. No matter what you say about Ronaldo, and it's just purely my take, right? No matter what you think or say about Ronaldo, he was justified to say how and what he feels. And I said this to one of my friends. When was this? I think it was sometime last month when Ronaldo walked off the pitch. The reason being was, he wasn't getting enough games and he was always on the bench as a sub. And there were games where he could have come on, and I think with 2 minutes to go, he just got off and just walked down the pitch. And the likes of Gary Neville. Gary Neville, you know who Gary Neville is, right? The former Manchester United and England player. Also played with Ronaldo. Well, I think was really harsh. And to be honest, Roy Keane did support Ronaldo. And I think Gary Neville was convinced. So awful. And I was saying this, with players like Ronaldo, do you possess an aura of arrogance? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. As a superstar, you need that. And, people can talk about, what kind of leader is he? You need to set good examples. I think that is just nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Players like Gary Neville can say what, because Gary Neville was just a basic standard player. Yes, he made a good living playing football, but he was a standard player. So what I mean by standard players is, look, he can kick, run, head, and pass the ball, right? Nothing special. And standard players usually do what they're told. So, for instance, during the time that Gary Neville was playing, if he did something wrong against Alex Ferguson, said something to him, he would just buckle down and just not say a word. Whereas some players like Ronaldo will challenge the manager. That doesn't make him disrespectful. It's just that that's how he feels. And every now and again, they will throw their toys out of the pram. That is to be expected. That's why you're a manager. That's why you're there to manage players like him. Ronaldo last season single-handedly carried Manchester United. Ronaldo has made Manchester United a better team. Simply because when you're playing with Ronaldo, I mean, you know what he's achieved and you up your game because he expects a level of quality from the players. So, to me, I think Ten Hag, the Man United manager, yes, I understand he's trying to assert his authority, but that's not how you do things. That's not how you do things. You don't use Ronaldo as a scapegoat. Ronaldo has not brought division in the change room. He hasn't. He's just letting you know he's unhappy. And he has every right to talk about how he feels, and they should leave him alone. A lot of his critics, cannot even tie his shoes. They cannot. And before you start talking about, by the way, he doesn't fit into the manager's style of play, the transition and they need quick players. Nonsense. Put Ronaldo up top, I can guarantee you he will get you goals. What's the point? Football's all about scoring goals and winning games. Put him up top, he will score you goals. Anyway, that's the newspaper headlines here. My name is Jones Awuah. This is GN Radio Breakfast Show. We're taking a big break, and when we come back, we will talk more. Don't forget, at 10:30, I will have a special guest in the house to talk to us about his new project. His name is Tunein. He's a musician, a Ghanaian musician, artist. He's got a new song that he's released, and we'll be talking more about him and his project. But also, there's something that I found about him, which more or less fits into our kind of program. I mean, you know, we talk about everything, current affairs, and he's released a song that actually deals with some of the things that we discuss here on the platform. So do stay tuned. I will be asking him questions as well. And if you do have any questions for him, make sure you send your questions in. You can call in as well. The numbers you need to send your questions, 0778 793 9958. 0778 793 9958. All right. We'll be back after these short commercials.
Yo, Ghana for you want English approach my muha. Ya sweady. Yenya emrenim fo a won akwatare wo emrenim a poto kasa mu ye kasa a lawyer fo entimi ne no mo yem for immigration ensem nyina enko dan wo mo Fortwell solicitors emrenim akuku dro fo se watna ha che ombeboa wo ma wonsa kan won krata na se wedi edro nso a eyo mo kokokra eba ne nipa sitena mu ani adwuma mu nsem bia omudim akotene pa omo wo mre di mani pa bia na de enika wo mu poni se no consultation fee.
Fortwell solicitors always puts our clients' needs first. We specialize in all UK visa applications, detention and deportation cases, student and work points-based work permit applications from both UK and abroad. Fortwell solicitors also deals with long residence and human rights applications outside the immigration rules. Don't wait till last minute. Fortwell solicitors is located at
Unit 1, ground floor, Katrina House, 58 Clarendon Road, London, N80DJ. Nearest tube station, Tempark Lane and Wood Green. Overground, Hornsey Station. Buses 41 to Archway and 144 to Maswa Hill. For more info, call 0203 3257 030. Call our 24-hour line on 0754 8701 011. Website www.fortwellsolicitors.com.
opening hours Monday to Friday 9:30 to 5:30 p.m.
Thursday Beyonce Young Milton Keynes.
Fortwell solicitors is regulated by SRA.
Fortwell Solicitors. Akosia na mutini seni akoda ya de sese de sa di nsemu
Ebusua ese de mepa no yonku da si ono usane mame
hwe ya sorry prekupe na fa akora no kona kwaji na yaresa adan wo wura fise ebisa wo hoi efritwa kunkum ana Samuel ngo me di kan etredu no nwotwe di chemu nwotwe no eho na bra na so wo ne Philippine for ekoko wo ko oba bia no aben ewo humu emode to nanim se wo kokon na obewu asante kotokose se wote wotwe so a ehimu enu nti sorry prekupe na tutumirika na fa akora no kokogina yarehwe esanse anoma wo hoye ye monopo ma me kosohwe abua ni papi wonu ma ti se yimu opeme okonachi na wasan ababiem sese de onnam posene kane no unim se oba bia cha adwaya na osiesie no honhumu yade ti se obaidi honhumu attack adayeso basabasa kodanna abrabo na sinitrase ayamhyehye wo hyehye na adwiregu abrabo mu adeso biada wo ba abrochire hayi ya santo apenso nanso wo nko a wosia na abu wo hyehye na adwire wo bopa na esane sikato wonsam a na ahye kai na hu se obiara nu a watimi atumirika esan otwen ho da ma wo ho enye hare na wo de na ankoye se abrojuma a woforobo wieye na afi obeka se wonu no ho wonu yade adokotafo entimi ansa no enumpo eno ye ho adwuma frema me kosohwe wo ahoman so 079084699914 079084699914 ana 074058070034 074058070034 mame kosohwe ana ye twere no a ye twere botantim
Abusiafo yɛde dwumadie foforɔ ɛbrɛ mu wɔ GN Radio. Your friend Worship and Inspiration every Sunday evening between the hours of 7 and 9 p.m. Daniel Kweku Datson and Amanda Ofori at the dwumadie ɛbrɛ. Make sure that you tune in. It's going to be an awesome moment of worship, God's word, conversation, gospel celebrity interviews, Bible knowledge, and what have you. And also your comments. I want to hear from you, your testimonies, what inspires you, and a lot more. Make sure say on miss our program every Sunday evening at GN Radio. Worship and Inspiration. Your weekly inspiration starts from here.
You are listening to GN Radio UK.
Welcome to the program. This is GN Radio, the breakfast show with me, Jones Awuah. I hope you're well and safe. Plenty to talk about this morning. So if you do remember, and if you've been following this program, right, a few weeks ago, there were some MPs. This is Ghana, by the way. And then we'll come to other stories across the continent of Africa. There were a group of MPs who were calling for the finance minister of Ghana to relinquish his position as the finance minister. Or they made a declaration to the president saying that if he does not sack the finance minister and his deputy, Charles Edubuahene, well, he's no longer in position. He's been given his marching orders after a NAS expose where he was captured as saying that if anyone wants to invest in the country, Ghana, any investor wants to go into the country and set up a business, he or she needs to pay the vice president of Ghana, Mahmoud Bawumia, $200,000. And of course, the vice president has refuted such claim. And as such, he has been given his marching orders. So one down, one to go. So the MPs who want the finance minister to step down declared that if the president fails to do so, then they will abstain from voting when the time comes for the budget. When the budget comes to Parliament, they will abstain from voting. And also the minority who are in opposition try to get these MPs to side with them. These MPs have made it clear that they will not do so. So then the president came back and said, look, at least let the finance minister read his budget, let the budget go through Parliament, and then we can revisit the issue. Now, the minority in Parliament have gone a step further because they're blaming the finance minister for the woes of the economy, blaming it on him, his incompetence. Right? And select committee, 8-member committee have been set up to probe the censure motion brought against the finance minister by the minority in Parliament. The finance minister was represented by Gabi Otridako. Now, I just wanted to put a bit of context to this, right? So, what the Article 82 of Ghana's Constitution, what it says about censure, votes of censure. And if you just bear with me, I'll just try and read it. So we're all clear as to what's happening here and the repercussions, what could eventually be the outcome. So Parliament may, by a solution supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all members of Parliament, pass a vote of censure on a minister of state. 2. A motion for the resolution referred to in clause 1 of this article shall not be moved in Parliament unless A. 7 days notice has been given of the motion, And B, the notice for the motion has been signed by not less than 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. 3. The motion shall be debated in Parliament within 14 days after the receipt by the Speaker of the notice for the motion. 4. The Minister of State, in respect of whom a vote of censure is debated under Clause 3 of this article, is entitled, during the debate, to be heard in his defense. 5. Where a vote of censure is passed against a minister under this article, the President may, unless the minister resigns his office, revoke his appointment as a minister. 6. For the avoidance of doubt, this article applies to the deputy minister as it applies to the minister of state. So this is what has been triggered, right? And in the end, if the vote against the finance minister, then that is the consequences. That's what's going to happen. And of course, the minority of the committee put up their argument, based essentially that they accusing the finance minister as being responsible for the economic woes that the country is facing right now. And they have their argument. They prove that this is the case. So the case has been adjourned till Friday to give the finance minister time to also come with his defense, and then we'll see what transpires after that. But they're not letting this go. Now, those MPs who were pleading to the president to get rid of the finance minister and his deputy have come out and said that they will not support the opposition's push for this censure. They will not support it simply because they believe it's just propaganda, and the opposition jumping on the bandwagon to force the finance minister out of office. To them, they've listened to the president. The president is saying that once the budget has gone through parliament, then this issue will be revisited. So, in a nutshell, this is where we are right now. I will play some of the sound bites very, very soon. But now we have Mr. Kit Yorson online to talk about this. Mr. Yorson, good morning. Yorson, looks like that our listeners did not hear you, so I might have to do that again. Good morning. Welcome to the show, Mr. Yorson.
Great. Thank you very much for the information, the detailed information you've given us and the listeners this morning. The MPP ministers themselves are calling for, if you like, the sacking of their own finance minister. They know something that we do not know. But a few things we know makes us support the idea of Ken Ofori-Atta being asked to descend. You go back to PDS scandal, the Japarat scandal, we know these are there. The government has supported and defended him throughout. But I would not blame Mr. Ofori-Atta alone. The whole setup is involved. What about the president's office itself? And this guy happens to be a relative of our president, unfortunately. This is a serious problem. Do you think we will have Boris Johnson's cousin Minister of Finance here, or Rishi Sunak's cousin Minister of Finance in UK, or Mr. Trump's cousin?
Well, we had Boris Johnson's brother. He was a cabinet minister.
At least his brother was not a Minister of Finance.
No, he wasn't, no.
You see, we didn't have Obama's brother or sister or cousin or wife Minister of Finance. You see, these things are happening. And we know that things are going wrong. We know the economy is not working well. And this man is at the helm of affairs. Look at what has happened to his deputy, Awuah. They have now descended him. It's not just him. It must be Ofori-Atta himself. It must be the president himself. It must be the vice president himself. Everything is scattered around Jubilee House. And Ghanaians are watching. It's sad state of affairs. Our situation is not good, and these people are taking us for fools. They're taking us for fools. They're taking Ghanaians for fools. That is, a fool is a person who doesn't realize left from right. But we are not fools. This is the point. So if we go further than that, it doesn't matter how many people want to send him down, God knows what. But the fact is that this man must immediately vacate office. Our president is supporting him to be going to negotiate with the IMF in order for how much and for how long. He's buying time on the throne. He himself is due to descend down. Even the vice president is also employed in an announced expose. That is telling us that the vice president takes $200,000 before he can speak or talk. Do you understand? I mean,
Well, he has refuted that, Mr. Yosin.
Oh, of course, yes. Everybody who's allegations. In Africa, in Ghana, every rumor tends to be true. From Kwame Nkrumah's time, it's not today. Every rumor is true in Ghana. Do you understand? But if it's not true, then there's something wrong. And whatever is wrong is what we have to address. It's serious. Because the people are dying. People are suffering. People are starving. Some people cannot eat 3 square meals a day. Whereas the NPP top officials, they are enjoying. They are enjoying to the extent that when their girlfriends or whatnot are pregnant, they ship them to London or to USA to be delivered of their babies. We know that. They're taking liberties too much. It's time for them to go. We don't need a military takeover. They are not worth it. They are not worth the bullet of the soldier. They have gone to a place where they cannot get out. We are only praying that one more year comes or two more years come before the next general election. But things are going wrong. So there must be a reshuffling in the NPP administration right now, with the president himself stepping down, and with even his vice stepping down now that allegations are coming. This is serious. No confidence in them. There must be a vote of no confidence in them.
But then on the issue of the Deputy Finance Minister, Charles Edubwahine, who was caught up in this expose by Anas. One would assume that the government acted swiftly, the president acted swiftly when it came to his notice that he was involved in such acts, Mr. Yosin.
See, they're all relatives. Everyone is a relative of the president, isn't it? It's a relative of the president.
The point I'm trying to raise here is this. So, we do talk about corruption and how to tackle corruption. And we've had cases or, have a debate on the fact that some governments' inability to deal with this phenomenon is what has actually driven it and made it, attractive to people to get involved in. So here we are. Anas releases a video, exposes this deputy finance minister, whom NPP MPs are already calling for him to, to be sacked from his position. And then the president acts swiftly. Wouldn't you say that is what Ghanaians want?
Yes, the president is trying to defend everybody to a point where he can't do it. Now he's giving up Dubai to go. Right. Now the people want the head of Mr. Oforiatta, because these guys are his relatives. He's telling Ghanaians that we must not do that. This is nepotism. Even if they are doing a good job, it won't sound right when there's an allegation there. You might think there's a cover-up, which is a strong possibility. So can our president not think? The president not think? His advisors can they also not think? Ghana is not their property. They're only 7. They are only our servants. But They are behaving as lords. They are lording everything onto us. It makes us uncomfortable. And the right decisions are not being made. The economy is not working. You see, that's why people are calling for the head of the finance minister. And the president is still defending him because he's a cousin. Oh, give my cousin a bit more time to go to IMF, to go and seek loans and all that. God knows what they do with the money they get in their hands. And this is a relative there. So we don't know where they are going. I haven't seen any government like that in Ghana since Nkrumah's time up to now. I haven't seen any bad government like this rotten NPP administration today. Let's just see the next few days, really up to Christmas, and see how we are going. All these people must retire, including the president himself.
All right, Mr. Austin, all these people must retire. Thank you very much for calling this morning. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Tomorrow is another day.
Tomorrow is another day indeed. But let me remind you about today. Talk Africa is on tonight at 7 p.m. on Channel 7, Sky 181, or on my Channel 7's page on Facebook. You can watch it live. Or better still, you can listen to it on GN Radio UK from 7 p.m. Now, you know, the interesting thing is this, and this is why, you know, when you talk about Africa in general, most people are familiar with Ghana, and people like to go to Ghana to do their business, and people like to travel to Ghana a lot. It's the fact that I think in terms of transitioning of power, elections, you know, we've experienced peace for a large, you know, I would say probably the last 20 years. You know, the change of power has been no issues. The transfer of power, no issues. Elections, there are a few, you know, hiccups here and there, but relatively it has been peaceful. And for me, when we talk about systems, institutions, and it working, I think this is one of the system that we ought to be proud of, no matter what the circumstances may be, or no matter what, you know, some may argue that this is just purely based on propaganda where the opposition are taking advantage of this. Regardless, we all had the opportunity to watch this, which was broadcast on air on what was happening, to the point where the leader of the majority, Haruna Idrisu, when he was addressing the committee on the motion of the censure against the finance minister, Kenneth Ofori-Atta, he said that reckless borrowing and reckless spending by the finance minister are the cause of Ghana's woes. He went on to say, did you borrow to support the war in Ukraine? Of course, he's alluding to the fact that many have said, you know, the crisis that the country is facing right now, you know, is as a result of what's happening in Ukraine. He goes on saying that it was because of Ofori-Atta's recklessness that caused Ghana's economic woes. Okay, so they're just blaming him, Ofori-Atta alone, for where people, you know, for where Ghana finds itself today. I mean, you look at the depreciation of the cedi, the inflation, you know, unemployment. I mean, it's just, Ghana is hard. So is everywhere. You know, we keep saying this, but Ghana is really hard. But my thing is, institutions working. The Constitution of Ghana makes it clear. And the last time I spoke to the economist, Daniel Sabote, where I asked him, I didn't want to draw him into, you know, this whole political arena, but, you know, I put a question to him about the fact that people are calling for him, for the finance minister to step down. And he made it clear. He said, look, he's done well. When he came in, he's done well. But, you know, it's time. He should do the honorable thing and just step aside. But it looks as if the finance minister ain't going nowhere. Neither does the president want him to go anywhere. All right, let's hear your take on this. 0203-735-8820. Alternatively, you can call 0778-793-9958, or you can send a text message as well. 0778-793-9958 on the same line. Now, I want to talk a bit about Donald Trump, the fact that Donald Trump is coming back. He announced it yesterday that he would stand in the next general election for the Republicans. And, I mean, look, love him or loathe him, Donald Trump just says how he feels, how it is, and sometimes, because he's not a conventional politician, so you don't expect him to play by the rules. But he's made his intentions clear. I mean, I didn't doubt anything. I didn't really doubt it at all. But let's watch this, okay? 5 things to know. I mean, not 5 things. The BBC reported that there are 6 things which could hinder his comeback. So I'll pick about maybe 2 or 3, right? Maybe 2 or 3. So 6 things that could make things difficult for Mr. Trump. And one, according to the BBC, 8 years ago, Mr. Trump was a political blank slate with no record as an office holder. Voters could project their hopes and desire onto him. He could make expensive promises, so much winning, without critics pointing to the past shortcomings and failure. I mean, that's true. That's true. I mean, Donald Trump came in and literally just said, "Oh, can you release Hillary's emails?" Right? An unconventional politician, somebody that just came and just broke the status quo, and people flocked to him. But now he does have a record where people can bring up and criticize him and scrutinize what he did whilst he was in office for that 4 years. The second is the shadow of 6th January. Mr. Trump won't just have to run on his policy record as a president either. He will have to defend the way he handled the end of his presidency and his role in the 6th January 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. And mind you, I don't think Donald Trump attended Biden's inauguration. He didn't, did he? I don't think he did. I don't recall. Let me know if he did or did not. I don't think he did. Now, that's going to be something difficult for him to, overlook. And of course, his core supporters will always side with him, Donald Trump. We happen to be in the age of fake news now, and that term was made popular or coined by Donald Trump himself, to the point where there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, about vaccines and about Democrats and about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and you Joe Biden. I mean, you name it. And when you tend to listen to these things, a lot of it are coming from people who are diehard Donald Trump supporters. 3, legal issues. One of the reasons flouted why Mr. Trump appears so eager to launch another presidential bid is because it will allow him to more effectively frame his multiple criminal and civil investigations as part of a larger political vendetta. I mean, he said this a couple of months ago. The FBI turned up at his house, unannounced. And Donald Trump came out fighting, as always, saying that these people think this is a third world country. This is America. And they're treating him like, he's somebody from a third world country. So I can see that happening. But while that might work for public relations purposes, Mr. Trump's legal exposure in these cases is very, very real. Okay, so the 4th one is a tougher opponent. As a Republican presidential contest began 8 years ago, Mr. Trump faced off against a Florida governor considered to be the party's prohibitive favorite. Jeb Bush, however, proved a paper tiger. A massive campaign war and famous last names was not enough. He was out of step with the Republicans' base on immigration and education policy. But now, if Mr. Trump wants nomination 2024, he may once again have to go through a Florida governor. So these are just some of the hurdles Mr. Trump has to overcome as he bids to become the next president. All right, anyway, we're taking a quick break. When we come back, we continue with our discussion.
I no go rush. I no go kill it by force. I will sit down when I will talk. I will kneel down when with your love. Is it because I know the songs, I know the chicken licking your paws? You must. Too late. Your body sharp for the bait. I started beat about the bush to date. To think about the way you scatter the place. I want to talk about the smile on your face. This your love now I'm your man. FDA don't stamp on them. Won't you show me how you move? Cause I've been waiting for a minute to be your boo. Close your back though, turn around though. Baby, are you already? With a man though, you go like to try me, you know I'm ready. Close your back though, turn around though. Baby, are you already? With a man though, you go like to try me, you know I'm ready. I no go shout, I no go rush, I no go pin it by force. I will sit down when I will talk. I will kneel down when with your love. Is it because I know the salt, I know the chicken licking your paws? You must be living in my cause. I will pick you with my love, Maria.
Welcome back. That is a new single from the artist known as Tunein. I'll be speaking to him this morning, exactly at 10:30 10 this morning. So let's say in about 25 minutes time, we'll be speaking to him about his new release and also just trying to catch up what he's been up to. It's been a while since we heard from him. There's actually a clip. There's a song that I came across, and I will play that song because I think it's important. It's actually it actually reminds me of some of the hip hop songs that I've heard in the past. So it'll be interesting to see what actually inspired him to come at it from that angle. All right, now let's look at other stories trending across the continent of Africa. And we begin with Algeria. The former CEO of Algeria's state-owned oil and gas group, Sonatrach, Abdelmamoun Ould Kaddour, was sentenced on Tuesday for 15 years in prison for corruption in connection with purchase of a refinery in Italy, according to a defense lawyer. Mr. Ould Kaddour was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Ahmed Magazi, the former assistant to Mr. Kaddour, who had piloted the project to buy the refinery, was also sentenced to 7 years in prison. A former executive of the oil group was sentenced to 3 years in prison, while another was released by the Algeria's court, according to the lawyer. They were prosecuted in corruption case related to the purchase by Sonatrach in 2018 of the Augusta refinery and various infrastructure in southern Italy from Esso, Italy, a subsidiary of American ExxonMobil. Now, the amount of the transfer had not been specified, but according to Algerian media, the oil group has paid $720 million, an amount considered excessive for an old refinery that began production in 1950. I mean, listen, oh man, this is the type of nonsense you hear when it comes to talking about issues to do with countries in Africa. Dare I say it? I know it's no hidden secret. And what beggars belief, right, is the fact that if you're going to purchase something, now I don't condone corruption. I don't like it. I never will. Let's just say I don't like it, right? If you're going to purchase something with this huge amount of money, $720 million, let me go a bit further before I even carry on talking. According to prosecutor's office, the transaction cost Sonatrach, which is a state-owned company, a total of $2.1 billion, as the company also paid $960 million to acquire the oil stored in the refinery and significant additional sums for the renovation work. So you want to buy something, and we know what they do. Like, it's in the public domain. We know what they do. So they inflate the prices. If you're going to purchase something, at least purchase something that is modern. Not a refinery that was built in 1950 in the 20th century. And it all comes up to $2.1 billion. Hey. When I say people are wicked, how can an individual purchase a refinery that was built in 1950, use taxpayers' money in the sum of $2.1 billion US? And then you look at people in the country and poverty, unemployment, people begging on the streets, people cannot make ends meet. And you have certain individuals in state-owned companies stealing money. So this is the thing. We never have value for money, right? If the thing is modern, at least you can make an argument and is effective, is working, right? But we always go for something that is shoddy. We find something that's shoddy, that is not value for money, and we inflate the price. And a lot of the time, people get away with it, and nothing happens to them. So an individual can, well, there's a couple of them, but he's the main man. So the buck stops with him. $2.1 billion US. The prosecution had requested 18 years in prison against Mr. Old Kador and 10 years against Mr. Mazigi, including for squandering public funds, abuse of office, and conflict of interest. So the conflict of interest here is, I won't be surprised if they wanted to own the refinery. And this is what happens. If you come in the case of Ghana, where instead of the office for people to tender for projects, the same person will get his or her family member to set up a company. And that goes through that company. So they get their cut. What is wrong with us? Why? It's unbelievable, isn't it? We should be used to it by now. But I am not. I mean, I've read so many stories. I've seen so many things. But it's just, oh, gosh. Anyway, let me hear your take. 0203-735-8820. Or 077-8793-9958 is the number you need. If you want to send a text message, you can do so. I'll read your text messages very, very soon. Unbelievable. To be honest with you, I think this man should have been, he should have given about 30 years in prison. This makes no sense. No sense at all. No sense. A small project, then we balloon the price because it's not our money. This is what we want to see happen. He shouldn't just get away with it. They should make him bring back that money. He should return all the funds. He should return the money. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's look at other stories as well. In Nigeria, Nigeria too has had its issues to do with corruption. And when I say this, it's not just peculiar to Africa, but it just seems like Africa, when it comes to corruption, dealing with corrupt cases or corruption in Africa, it just looks messy and disgusting, and it's just, We know what happens here. During COVID, we saw what happened. Money were given to companies which were barely 6 weeks old to deal with PPEs. With that one, the argument is, we were in crisis. This company seemed to be ideal, and we gave them the money to procure these PPEs. There's an argument for this. But this, absolutely none whatsoever. You've gone and purchased an oil refinery which was built in 1950. And you spent $2.1 billion on this. Why? Like, anyway, Nigerians, of course, will go to the polls next year, in February 2023. Nigeria's ruling party, the APC, All Progressive Party, kicked off their presidential campaign in Jos. Let's take a quick listen to this.
Nigeria's ruling party, All Progressives Party, APC, kicked off the presidential campaign in Jos, Plateau State, on Tuesday for the elections to be held at the end of February 2023. The party's presidential candidate promised hope to the country's youth.
To you, the youth, we made a promise that today may be difficult, but hope is not lost. We won't let you down. Nigeria will be well, and our hope will renew again. Today, we are renewing that hope.
In his speech, Tinubu praised the achievements of current President Muhammadu Buhari, promising a bright future for all Nigerians. There are a total of 18 candidates in the presidential elections, but only 4 have a realistic chance of shaping the outcome of the scrutiny.
Well, so that is the promise of the APC as they kick off their presidential campaign. They have a message for the youth. They promise the youth bright future for all Nigerians. Where have we heard this before? Bright future for all Nigerians. Bright future for all Nigerians. Bright future for all Nigerians. I think these guys just sit down and, the speech writers are just bored and they just say, hey, let's just put this. I mean, there's nothing substantive in what he's saying. I understand it's campaign time and, it's just excitement and saying whatever you need to say for your support to jeer and share and shout and scream as if you're saying something of real significance. Nothing. I don't know. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Bright future for all Nigerians. Nigeria will be well and our hope will renew again, promised the presidential candidate. Oh dear. I mean, sometimes you come you come in and of course you know what you're going to discuss. And what I tend to do, right, is not to have any pre-existing thoughts about what I'm actually going to say, because I think then obviously my mind is made up. I don't. I read the subject, I read the topic, and yes, it's important. I feel like we need to share it, and of course, I will do so. I don't take a position. So everything I sit here and I tell you, it's just things that I'm actually processing and thinking about as I talk to you. And I don't know, maybe it's just an apathy, of promise, and no sort of nothing to show for what they promised. I remember when Buhari came in, they said the guy will fight against corruption, and, it was under his tenure that we saw that people were actually on TV, people that were deemed to be corrupt were actually fainting on TV. Also, a few weeks ago, actually, Idris shared this with me. Idris is a journalist, Nigerian journalist, with Priscilla as well. I think it was a select committee, finance select committee, looking into during the audit where people were called in to answer for what has happened, how money was spent. And in their submission, they actually spent more than they generated. How is that even possible? They spent more than they generated. They spent over 2 billion naira or so. So this was an institution that was supposed to generate income. So their expenditure outweighed what came into the coffers. And how does this even make sense? How does one even argue about this? And when asked about how they went about getting their figures, oh, we didn't do it electronically, we did it manually. Of course, manually will give you the opportunity to do whatever you needed to do, because if you use it electronically, then everything is recorded. You know. And let's look at the stories as well. Keep your thoughts and comments coming in, right? And I will read them out to you. Keep them coming in. Let's look at other stories as well. Now, the former Kenyan president, Uhuru Kenyatta, wants warring parties in DRC to lay down their arms. Let's listen to what Kenyatta had to say.
Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta greeting officials on the tarmac at Goma Airport in the eastern DRC. His visit comes as soldiers are engaged in renewed clashes with M23 rebels to the north of the key city. On Monday in Kinshasa, he called on all parties in the conflict to lay down their arms and nurture a sense of patriotism. Kenyatta is a mediator in the East African community's attempts to bring about peace in the east of the DRC. Recent fighting in the region has forced hundreds of already displaced people to Goma. The M23 has seized swathes of territory in North Kivu province and is getting closer to the city. The East African community is to hold a round of talks next week in the Kenyan capital Nairobi, aimed at diffusing the crisis.
Hopefully they'll be able to find a solution to the crisis. Now, Zambia demands answers for the death of a student. Lusaka has asked Moscow to urgently provide information on the circumstances surrounding Lemikani Yerenda's death. The 23-year-old student at the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute had been served 9 years in jail for drug offense. His family has unanswered questions and wants to identify the body in Russia. Mr. Nyirenda died in September, but Russia has only just informed Zambia's government. The Zambian embassy in Russia established that Mr. Yerenda's body had since been transported to the Russian southern border of Rostov on the Don in readiness for repatriation to Zambia. Zambia's Foreign Affairs Ministry Stanley Kakubo said this on Monday, and I quote him, "As a minister, I have been personally in touch and I will maintain contact with the family of the deceased in order to provide an update on the more details surrounding their loved one's death." End quote. Now, the student was working as a part-time courier when an unknown person handed him a package containing drugs. His father, Edwin Yerenda, told reporters. The father also said that we don't know who conscripted his son from prison, and added that the family only received a message from a man we don't know in Russia who told us that there was a will which our son left and we should travel to Russia. Okay, so he was conscripted. Of course, it was widely reported that a lot of prisoners were actually being taken to Ukraine to fight, the war between Russia and Ukraine. So that is that. It's sad, isn't it? It's really, really sad. Hopefully they'll be able to get more information on what has happened. There seems to be a lot that has been concealed. Hopefully the family can carry on to put pressure on Russia. I don't know how far that's going to go, but they have to keep the pressure on Russia. All right, now let's look at other stories. Cameroon celebrates the legacy of cotton.
Cameroon Fashion Week has kicked off in Yaoundé with an urban parade dedicated to the celebration of cotton. Models opened the way to an impressive parade of dancers, performers, clowns and even giant puppets. The show was called Cotton Pride, from seed to dress. When you see a woman walking by in a beautiful dress or a man in beautiful cotton trousers, you can't imagine the whole chain of work that goes into it. So, in fact, Cotton Pride is the pride of cotton work. It means that before you can wear this beautiful dress, there are people who cut, there are people who sew, there are people who spin the fibers, there are people who sow the seed, others who pick the flowers, and others who transport these cotton flowers to the spinning mill. So in fact, all these pictures show the different stages of cotton processing. The show was a prelude to the Fashion and Design Forum. The Urban Parade was an initiative of the Centre des Créateurs de Mode du Cameroon, which is headed by Yves Aya. The theme of the designers' collections is Let Fashion Express Itself, and for us it was important that fashion went to the streets, because today when we look at the streets, it's all that inspires